Hi everyone. So this is interesting topic. I mean, you might have already familiar with this thing, but how are you doing validation till today? I mean, I have used a simple Express Web framework. There I have used JOD library, schema based validation, Joy library, and in the NestJS there is cherry on top. They have introduced a class validator and a class transformer. Validation means when the request enters in your request lifecycle, how do we validate? How can you make sure that email is email, UUID is a UUID, email is email, or a particular pattern, URL is URL, a number is number, string is string, boolean is boolean, query parameters are validated, request parameters are validated, payload body is validated. How do we make sure? So we have to use some library for it. NestJS provide DTOs out of the box. In the DTOs, you can validate each and every attribute using these class validator decorators like is int, is boolean, is number, is UUID, is optional, is required, is email, is URL and all. But earlier that we were using Joy and a JOD. Both are like popular libraries. I mean, I'm still use Joy or JOD. Once the user enters the JSON payload, we can just run some validations against it. If the valid request is not valid, we just send bad request with a proper error message. So in the NestJS provides the pipes. So you already know what are the pipes. Pipes are actually nothing but a request transformer, interceptor pipes. So there is a validation pipe also, like parse int pipe, parse boolean pipe. So there is a validation pipe where you can run the validation against an object being sent from the client. So validation pipe, what it does is validate and transform. There are two things it is doing: validate and transform. Both things are possible with the validation pipe. That's why it is pipe, because pipes are also useful for transforming the data in the requested format. Let's say you are passing query parameter UUIDs in the comma separated form. But before we enter into the controller, I want to convert those UUIDs into string array. So those things can happen. First, we will validate that you are passing UUIDs as a string. Second, we will transform it and we will convert that comma separated UUID strings into an array of string, right? So that is happening with the validation pipes. So we use these two libraries, class validator and a class transformer. And in every application, we register the validation pipe globally because we are writing APIs. Every API needs some kind of a validation to be done on the request payload, in the query parameter, in the path parameter, in the request body. So we registered the validation pipe at the top. But this validation pipe, app.use global pipe, app.use global interceptor, app.use global middleware, these are some methods provided by NestJS where you want to apply things at a global level. App.use global pipe, app.use global interceptors, these are the things. So I'm enabling this validation pipe because I want to validate each and every request, either query parameter, path parameter, body. So I am registering the validation pipe globally. I mean, this is what you will see in every application. What I'm doing is whitelist true. Strip non-decorated properties. In the login, I'm just passing email password, but let's say I also passed retype password or password to property. It will trim it. It will remove it before it sends to the controller. Forbidden, non-whitelisted. Throw an error for extra properties. So always be careful. I mean, I just specify whitelist true and transform true. That's it. But if you have specified this, that means if you are passing any additional property based on your thinking, you didn't check the documentation, you started, then you will see an error. Transform option, enable implicit conversion true. I mean, implicit conversion means, okay, let's say 0 is also considered as a false, right? So there are some implicit typecast which happens in JavaScript that will be enabled. Transform true, whitelist true. That's it. Now validation. I mean, Joy and JOD you might be familiar with or not. We can just check. But this is class validator and class transformer. So is string, is email, is int, min, max. All these are decorators provided by class validator. And class validator is an independent library. It has nothing to do with the NestJS. You can use it in the isolation also with the TypeScript. So here I'm saying is name length 220 is string. Wherever you add a is optional, that means you can just skip it. But if you are providing age, then that means it should be number, minimum should be 0 or maximum should be 120. You can either provide a role, it's optional, but if you are providing, then follow this enum guideline. And what it is doing is transformation. Username is string, it is required because there is no is optional added here. That means is username needs to be passed, and whatever the value you are passing, it will convert that into the lower case, right? So there are some common validator like is string, is not empty, length, is number, is email. I mean, there are tons. You can just check the library. So this is how we can validate the address DTO. Let's say if I'm validating the nested object inside address, there is a address object, name, addresses. Then you have to use validate nested. Validate nested means I also want to validate the nested object which I'm going to pass in the payload. Address, name, street, that is fine. But address, where I'm going to specify the city, state, country, pin code, street number and all, that can be validated. You can write a custom validator. This is very important, and this we are going to play with one example. How to write a custom validator.